Hello.
Caitlin,
Hi.
we made it.
We made it. We're here.
Thank you again so much for persevering through technical difficulties, life craziness, and ending up here with me today.
No problem. It is my honor to be here today.
So I'm just going to introduce you for everyone who doesn't know you. Caitlin is Executive Director of Let's Change the Conversation Productions, and she is also a current MRA student, soon to be Mind Rebel certified coach.
Yes.
Okay, so Caitlin, I'm just going to dive right in and
Let's do it.
say there's something about you that when I was trying to, it occurred to me, I'm like, I read your newsletter, and it occurred to me really quickly, I want to have a conversation with Caitlin on Mind Rebel Diaries so bad. And I was trying to describe who you are and what you're like to the other faculty members who don't personally know you. And I was trying to describe why there's something so captivating about you and why I wanted to have a conversation with you. And I found you so hard to describe. And I just kept circling back to, she's just so authentic. But it's like, it's not like one particular thing that I can put my finger on. It's the combination of when you speak, I'm never sure what you're going to say. And when you express yourself, there's so many different sides of you that you can't guess. And you're just like this breath of fresh air who every time I see you, every time I hear you, every time I read what you write, it makes me want to lean in and go, oh, wow, what you just said feels so real to me.
Wow. Thank you. That's some of the highest praise I've ever gotten. And authenticity.
You're
That's
so
my
welcome.
jam. So if you see that in me, that is just so validating to me and what I'm trying to do in the world. So thank you so much.
You're so welcome. And so you told me, authenticity is like one of your favorite things. The other one is sexuality, which we're going to talk about too. But how did authenticity become one of your favorite things? And how did you become so authentically you?
Oh, good question. I think I started this authenticity journey about 2 years ago, a little longer now, 2.5 probably. And it was just all these messages that I was getting from all these mentors in my life, just books I was reading and stuff, and coaches I was listening to, podcasts, and they were all saying the same thing. And I was noticing that. And I was like, wow, like the common thread among what they're all saying is that kind of the key, like, is to be your authentic self. That's the work that we all need to do to get to these next kind of versions of ourselves. We want to feel better inside. We want to feel happier inside. And everywhere I was looking, they were like, authenticity is the key. So once I made that connection, I have just been kind of blinders on authenticity and living my authentic truth, and doing the work, as you guys would say, to cultivate the courage to do that, because that is, identifying your authentic truth is one piece, but then the other piece is cultivating the courage to live it out, which is a lot of deep inner work. But it's in me. It's now, I was talking to Taryn in my mentor session I had with her, and she complimented me on my ability to do the work. And I was like, I have no problem with doing the work. I have problem with finding time for all the other things in my life, because the work is hard, but it is just so, once you start to reap those benefits of the authenticity and those good feelings inside, it's just so good. So then I want it for everybody. So.
Oh my gosh. I relate to you, and I'm inspired by you. And, what occurs to me is, all the books you read and all the podcasts you listen to, and it's like, I think a lot of us hear the same messages, like, and you hear them and you go, yeah, that's true. I believe you. Be authentic. But the gap from hearing that and understanding that and leaning into both, like, just identifying, like, what's true for me, what's real for me, who am I, and having the courage to lean in and become that version of you or express yourself that way. The amount of time and energy and work that is, it's huge. It's like a full-time life job.
Yes, it is. And I don't think I realized that kind of when I started the journey. But, I've been working on my business strongly for over a year now. And I feel like, I don't know what percentage of it is doing my inner work versus doing actual stuff on the business, but it's the great majority, because the business stuff can come. That can be figured out one little detail at a time, but you're never going to take those next steps if you don't continue on your path of doing the work. It's like the fuel that's necessary, absolutely essential to continue on that path forward.
Oh gosh. Can you tell? I mean, I sort of know the big picture of Let's Change the Conversation Productions, but can you tell me, like, how that came about and what you're doing and what the plan is?
Sure. I can tell you where I am today, which might not be the same as where I am tomorrow because it's constantly changing and evolving. But that's the thing I've learned is, like, if you're waiting to get it all figured out, you're never going to get started. So step by step, piece by piece, it actually came to me in a flash. The name of it came, and it was a little over a year ago. I was on a podcast, and the name of the podcast is Beautiful Anonymous, which was my favorite podcast. So I wasn't on there as me. I was on there as an anonymous person. The whole premise is that he has an hour-long conversation with an anonymous person, and they tell him about their life. So I went on and told him about the work in women's sexuality that I had been doing. I did the work in my own life, and then I did it professionally for a brief period of time. And at the end of the conversation, he was just like, I like these things you're talking about here. Like, I think about it all the time. It's like, we don't need to just change this or that. We need to change the whole conversation of how we're, like, looking at these issues. Very, like, deep root level, not just like one little piece here. And those pieces are all important, not to invalidate them. But my background, I have a background in business and in social work. And as a social worker, I always worked at the macro level, which is micro is like one-on-one work. Meso is like small groups and communities. And then macro is really working on issues like social issues at a societal level. So that's always been my jam. And then, so I started seeing these things. They're just like flashes, like, and you get those feelings inside that say, hey, you're going this way. So I had the name, Let's Change the Conversation. And I knew it was about deep change in our culture, but I didn't know much beyond that at that point. And, I journal is one of my, activities to kind of keep my brain from spinning all the time. And just for the last year, I just write, and it's like, what's this business? What's this business? Because it was like catching the purpose, once I had that line, it was it. It was like I was off to the races, and my brain just goes, and I didn't know what it was. It was so fuzzy, but it's like shifted and changed, and it was this, and then it was that, and and then there's all these ideas, and I'm like, I think it's that, but I also think it's this, and how can these two things or three things or however many things, probably a lot actually, come together? It doesn't make sense, but I've been following my hero's journey since starting MRA, and it's so true. The things that Taryn said, that she said, if you go, on the journey, on the path, and kind of do your inner work, your exquisite self-care, and just take next best steps forward. But these people will come into your life, and it's happened. And I'm like, oh my goodness, it's really happening. And I've partnered with different women that have kind of helped me see like another piece of it, piece by piece puzzle.
Oh no, he froze for a sec.
Oh no.
Oh, there we go. We froze for a sec.
Oh no. Oh no.
I hear you now.
Okay. Let me know if it happens
people are coming
again.
In. Okay.
Oh, hi people. Okay, so yes. Am I good now?
You're good.
So piece by piece, I've been gathering the little pieces of the puzzle. And right now, in this business's current iteration, it is a media company where we create different forms of media because, macro level messaging and change, like media is a big part of our lives, like whether we want it to be or not. And I just think there's so much junk. It's like we're getting bombarded with junk. And like, this is not maybe yet an official tagline of the company, but what I think of, and I'm like, let's just put more good shit out into the world. I am so sick of how much bad shit there is bombarding us every day. Let's just make good stuff that's teaching these good messages of love and authenticity and compassion and all of those things and start putting them into the world. So that's been coming along piece by piece. And then our first project, I do have a newsletter. And so that I guess is the first project, but then our next project coming out, it's called the Not Tonight Project. And it is it may be more than a podcast eventually, but we're going to start with a podcast. And it's about women's sexuality because, first of all, I'm partnering with my friend Rachel Walker, and we used to work together in this space. And it is just a topic that we are both so passionate about, like exploring more because nobody's talking about it. I mean, people do talk about it, but not in the way of just like the compassionate piece. And especially our focus is hoping to be marriage or long-term relationships, because there's a lot of stuff out that we find that's like about sex in general, but not as much discussed when it gets into marriage. And the platform, the idea is we're going to interview women and have bold conversations about sex. And we keep saying that you can't leave sex out of doing the work. It's when we talk about doing the work, we don't often talk about sex. We talk about, you got to get your physical and mental health right. You have to get your relationships right, but we may not talk specifically about that. And I've been on my own crazy journey with sexuality. And now that I've seen the transformation that is possible, it's just like, I want that. So that's where we are today.
I want to ask you about your journey, but I'm going to tell you something first.
Okay.
I'm so glad you just said that about how we leave sex out of the work, because I realized recently that happened to me, and you helped me realize it. So I didn't realize it before. So I'm like, oh God, I want to talk to Caitlin. I read about the Not Tonight project. I'm like, something about it drew me in. And I was like, yes, I want to talk about this. But I would have told you that like, I'm good in that area. My relationship's great. My sex life is great. I'm good. But I want to talk about it. But I think like something, I don't know, some little seed was planted in the universe. You know how the universe just, I don't know, helps you uncover things you don't even know are there. I realized that I have these patterns that I've worked on that kind of go through all the different areas of my life. And I've done so much work on them. And I felt like I've transformed them. And even especially in my relationship, I've done so much work in the area of love and relationship. And I felt like I've mastered that. And all of a sudden, I realized the exact same pattern that I thought I'd really worked on and really had a handle on. I realized it was like hanging out in this little teeny shadow way in my sex life. And I was stunned by it. I had it was a total blind spot, like the definition of blind spot. And it really took me by surprise. And then it just made me extra excited to come back and have this conversation with you.
Yes.
So how, I don't know, what made you look at that? I don't know if you identified it as a blind spot at the time, but what made you look at your sexuality and your sex life?
Oh, that is a good question. That's funny that you say that, because I think that I would have also not necessarily identified an issue. This issue is so deeply ingrained in us as women. Our role in the sexual experience, and I'm talking usually in like heterosexual relationships right now with a masculine and feminine, but it's often one of service, just like many other areas for women. It's they need it, so it's your job to give it to them. If you're a good spouse, a good partner, you're going to meet their needs. And I think we just get used to that role because we've been told it our whole life. So I didn't really question it. And like, it wasn't like, I have been with my husband for 21 years. So that whole area of our life has ebbed and flowed a lot during, high school, college. Yeah, great. And then, 20s, but kids, and then like not so great. But it was still just like, yeah, that's just normal. All my girlfriends around me were experiencing the same thing. We are in the, moms of young children age group often. And like, not that that's the only people that, experience dissatisfaction in their sex life, but it's one common time for women to experience it. And we were all just like, we'd go out to dinner and some of them would complain about, oh, I gotta go home to my husband. It's been a week, so, got to do my job, stuff like that. And it's funny now saying it out loud because like, I didn't hear it then. It was just normal. It's just like, yeah, that's how it goes, kind of. And then how I actually woke up to it, I'll share this brief story. I was at a wedding, and a friend of ours, an old friend from when we were young, and when we hang out with these people, like wedding people you see from your past life when you used to go out and do things and party, it was after a wedding, we were at a bar, we were drinking, and he's a single guy, and he said to my husband and me, he's like, hey, I sleep with different people all the time and I get bored. This was this guy's advice to my husband, trying to make light of it. And he said, you guys have been together for 20 years. You need to make sure you spice it up for him. Because he's like, sex is like pizza. Cheese pizza is like good, but I don't want it all the time. Sometimes I want some pepperoni. Sometimes I want, Hawaiian. And then my husband replied, oh, it's all cheese pizza. And I was like, oh, what? How could you say that? And it was a waking up moment. I was like, in my mind, I was like, I'm doing this. At this point, we had 3 small children. I think I had a baby. I might have still been, no, I think I was pregnant with my third, actually, when this conversation was like, sex was not great at this point in our relationship. And I was like, I'm doing this for you. And all you can say is it's cheese pizza? Like, screw you, kind of. And I was like, if you're not happy and I'm not happy, then we're just not doing this anymore. So I was like, put up a firm boundary. It's like, we're starting over from scratch, kind of. Like, I'm not doing this. Like, I was doing it for you, which again, now I'm like, that was kind of the problem. But I didn't recognize it then because it's so ingrained. So once I woke up from that, it was just like, okay, this is not working for either of us. What are we going to do about it? I love my husband. I adore him. I don't want to get divorced. I don't want to spend my life with someone else, but like, we're not doing this anymore. So I actually took a coaching program. It's called the Wanting It More program by Janet Denton House. And I started making changes. And in the end, it was, oh gosh, I'm trying to remember. It was 8 or 12 weeks now. It was a few years ago. So I'm trying to remember. I think it was a 12-week program. And I did the work then, but it's been continual since then, evolution. And it's just, grown and gotten better and better. And it's like sexuality is really this well of like possibility. But a lot of us have so many kind of hang-ups and shame and this. I mean, I barely met anybody that doesn't suffer from some forms of sexual shame. It's so deep inside us. So the work is hard, the work is deep, but the work is so rewarding. So
And what I'm sure there were many different things and many different things to contemplate and many different things to try, but what was the essence of the work for you? And like, what is it still?
The essence of doing the work in the sex life is exactly the same as doing the work in the rest of my life. And that is finding your inner truth. This took me a long time. And when I started the work, if I was like, oh, what's my inner truth of what I enjoy sexually? I would have said, I don't even know, like nothing. That's how I was with sex at that point in my life. It was, I have low libido. I don't want anything to do with it almost. Like it was really not a good place. It's so much shame. I grew up, in the Judeo-Christian, that the form of it that's filled with a lot of shame, sexual shame, being told there was the worst thing you could do, a sin, all of this, my whole life, navigating that through my youth. But yeah, the work was turning inward and asking myself, what do I want out of this sexual experience? Not, just like porn, for example. Like I think a lot of people get their sexual education from porn, which I could go on forever about, why it's so harmful. But what's the woman doing? It's so performative. Like we're worried about how we look and what our body's doing, and is he getting pleasure? It's all about the male's pleasure. And there are some forms of porn that are trying to change that, but it's not. It's about turning inward and saying, what feels good to me? If this is my time for my pleasure and my experience, what do I want? And the work is walking the line to learn that a lot of the times and get deeper in touch with it. And that vulnerability, of course, vulnerability is a huge piece of doing the work in general. But with sex, like that's the most vulnerable thing, like that you share with another person, with another human being, really. So it's deep work, it's hard work, but again, the reward is so great. So
yeah. What I find really interesting is we have like, my little pocket of my blind spot that I just realized. It sounds on the surface different from what you were experiencing, but at the heart of both of those things, what I was noticing is that, it wasn't expressing itself in me as I don't want to, and I'm doing it for you, but the same stream of like, but there was something performative in it. And there was an emphasis on what's most important here. This was very subconscious, because consciously I didn't believe this, but I realized subconsciously what was most important to me is that my partner was happy. And the other thing that I realized that around that was I didn't realize how much fear I had there. That I realized that felt like very high stakes, almost like survival level, which is like, this is still like this brand new revelation for me right now, but almost like, and the reason I realized all of this, or the moment that helped me realize that this is all here, was I had a moment where I felt this, not like rejection, but I felt this essence of not, I guess, like performing in a way that made him super happy, or like he was slightly disappointed. And if you were there in the moment, you would be like, I don't even know. I don't see any of that, but I'm so sensitive. I am so sensitive. And I cried like a baby. I felt like it was like my world was falling apart. It felt like my relationship was threatened. It felt terrifying that this wasn't perfect. And And that started peeling back these layers of like, oh my God, I hold such fear about this thing being okay. And like you said, the work here is similar to the work other places. As soon as I realized, wow, I hold a lot of fear here of it not being perfect and not being however I'm supposed to be or however my partner wants me to be, that like, I know if that much fear exists here, there's actually no way that I'm expressing completely who I am authentically in this area.
Exactly.
And I think you kind of touched on it a little bit about, you know, this is like this pervasive thing that exists, but do you relate to the fear part of it? Or like, where do you think this fear plays into, I don't know, women suppressing some part of their authenticity in their sexuality?
Yeah, I definitely think there's a lot of fear. I don't know if it's a fear of being seen, perhaps seen fully for who you are, for your desires, for your, those things have historically been unsafe for women to have desires, to have, that historically, and that trauma can get passed, we experience trauma inside of us that is passed down to us from our ancestors. And it's just deep. Sex has not been safe for women, like ever, like in the history of women. Like I'm sure there's lots of people that can find safe sexual relationships, but in general, like it has been historically an unsafe space for us. So, and it's also the messages we receive in our culture. So it's a combination of these things. And I do think it is that really, really deeply being seen, that intimacy that's required for really deep, nurturing, connecting sex, that's hard. That's like letting people see us that much, so vulnerable that a lot of us kind of shy away from it a bit.
Yeah. Did you just say, I forget if you just said nurturing or nourishing, like one of those words you just said. There is, like, you're so right, being seen for like exactly who you are, it is like nurturing and nourishing. And I noticed, this is just like, I just peeled back one teeny little layer, but when I realized these things and I cried and cried and cried, and I was like leaned in, I'm like, okay, let's express this as I do in other areas. And I was able to share. I noticed then this new one teeny little element that had never been in the open before in our sex life now was. And I got to like say it. And now it was not just like hidden inside of me. It was like, oh, that's like one little other piece that I don't have to hide and can be seen. And it is wonderful. It is. It's like it's scary to have them be seen when you're in your fear, but then it's so nourishing and nurturing to have it be seen.
Totally. I had similar, yes, piece by piece, layer by layer. And there was one thing that was a little bit bigger deal for me to share with my husband. When I first started, I was just like, I don't even know. Like, I'm so like over sex right now that like, I couldn't even think of a thing. But in the Wanting It More program that I talked about before, she told us like, start wherever you are. Like start, you have some, okay, so let me say this. We should frame sex as connection to take a lot of the pressure off of it, because there's so much pressure in sex, right? It's just like, so him happy, you happy, it's necessary for you guys to have this successful marriage or relationship and whatever, but that's a lot of pressure. So start with sex is a time for you to connect. And then if you go from there, you can just say, okay, if I was just going to sit with my partner and connect, what would feel good? This is the journey inside of yourself. And for me in the beginning, that included a lot of something that felt good and safe inside of my body was just foot massages. That's a form of touch and physical connection I can get behind any time of the day. I do not need to be in the mood for that kind of touch. and back massages. Like it's going to be pretty hard for me to turn that down. Like that's something that I get excited about. That's something I look forward to. So I started in those spaces of just like, well, let's connect through this way. And my husband, he was happy too. He likes giving me massages. He was fine. Like at first I was so guilty, like, oh, is it okay if we just do this? It's a lot of boundary work because you got to stop giving yourself away to doing those things you don't want to do. Again, listen to yourself. Your body's the compass, like just like in all the other work we do. It tells you. In the sexual experience, if your body's saying no, you got to cut it off. And that might be uncomfortable at first because your partner might not be used to that. So it's a lot of conversation, a lot of like, back and forth. And like, this is just a journey for me. I want to kind of, reclaim myself. And so it might start off slowly. Maybe not. Maybe you don't have as many boundaries as I did, but I had so many boundaries in the beginning. And again, this was almost 20 years into a relationship. So there was so much history. Now we've gone to counseling and done the work and stuff. So we dug through, but this was layered under issues.
Yeah.
So yeah, we started with sexist connection and we peeled back layer by layer by layer. And it was getting better. I was enjoying it. But then there was a point where there was a big one. And I won't share all my secrets. I won't tell everybody what the big one was, but it was something I was really afraid to tell them. It's a little outside the norm for my former sexually conservative self. I was always kind of just like, I'm not a very sexual person. I don't know. I'm not, So, but as this girl, I'm like, well, maybe I would like this. Maybe I would like this. And then there was this big thing. I was like, maybe I would like this. And I was so afraid to tell him. And then when I did, and he accepted that for me, it was like the walls came crumbling down. Like I remember our marriage therapist used to say this exercise, like try looking into each other's eyes. And I would get like 10 seconds in and want to die. I just couldn't do that. That was too intimate for me, like just staring into each other's eyes. I told him this one really big thing that had come up for me in my sexuality. And it was like, I could stare into his eyes for 10 minutes now and it wouldn't faze me because it's just like, he sees me in all of me, at least all of me that I know so far. I probably will discover more of myself along the way as I have. But like right now, there's nothing that I'm desiring or wanting or something that I'm keeping hidden. And it's just like opened like the floodgates of connection between the two of us. So
you sound like the freest goddess right now. Like just, like the freedom I can feel from you and being able to just like be you and be seen. It's like, it's glorious.
Oh, wow. Thank you for that reflection. And I guess I'm stepping into that to hear you say that. I'm like, me? That's how you see me. But I guess I am. It's piece by piece, step by step. But yeah, in the bedroom, I definitely feel free. And again, formerly not enjoying it. So it is pretty awesome. And that's why I want everybody else to do the work.
So not like, I don't mean specifics here. I'm not asking about like, tell me what you like, but like, what were some of the, like, what have you uncovered about who you really are authentically as a sexual woman and like, what do you like and what do you need and want in terms of like, not a particular physical thing or whatever, but just like, I don't know, in the energy or the essence or, I don't know, you know what I mean?
Yes. The first words that come to me, which we've already said, but are connection and nourishment. Like if I'm not experiencing that, like that's the kind of sex I like, whatever type of sex people like is great. But the important part is you find the type of sex you like. And, there's all the things, you can get whips and chains or handcuffs or lingerie. And all of those were always like no's for me. I just didn't want that. And if you do, great. But I couldn't like there was nothing that I could like call on. Like, oh, I like when this is happening. So I can kind of get my engine going or whatever. That I didn't have those things. But I think in the end, my thing is just deep, like spiritual connection in a way. Like, I mean, we always start with just cuddling. Cuddling is so delicious cuddling and with no pressure to ever advance. There's never any pressure. There's never anything. It's just living from a space of like, right now, I just want to lay here with my head on your chest and like soak in that. And if that's all it is for the day, great, because you still connected. When I was first doing this work, I really had to get myself mentally in a space to engage really in a positive way. So I was setting my room up like a spa, because I always thought, well, where's like, if I could do anything in the world with my time, what would I do? And I'm like, I go to the spa. That's my happy place. And so I was like, I brought those elements in. I'm like, let's do the candles and the soft music and these fuzzy blankets and just like, you know, be in this space together. And so whatever sounds nourishing to you, that would, it shouldn't be so many times it's a obligation or a to-do or just another thing, or there's reasons that it's causing tension or strife or anxiety, whatever it is. But that's not the space that we're not enjoying it then. You have to get back in what would feel it's like fuzzy and warm and nice and nourishing to your soul, and like start from there and get creative and have fun, because fun's also really another important part. We take it so seriously, but like, why? It's for pleasure. It's for fun.
Yeah. It's, you know, what's so funny? Why everything you're saying makes so much sense. It's like, yes, of course, you're saying the most like logical thing in the world in some ways, but I forgot it. Not entirely, but like, why? I don't know. Why do you think why do you think the world forgets? And yeah, let's start there. Why do you think the world forgets?
My initial answer is the patriarchy. It's just like, it's our societal system of women. So let's change the conversation. Productions is actually in its entirety a women's empowerment company, because I could go on about that forever. But I do think that the path, one of the major paths to healing the world, is through the empowerment of women. But there's just so much societal messages that make us forget over and over, because it's deeply ingrained. The giving of away of ourselves to others is deeply ingrained to us from the time we are born, probably. So that's almost our natural state, and it takes like active challenging it to not forget, to stay in that space of like, oh no, this is for me. I can do something that's good for me. That meets my needs, my desires. Like that's work a woman has to put in to get into that headspace, because of the way we've been trained, essentially.
Yeah. And you know, what's occurring to me is I feel so lucky right now that I got to have my little realizations this week, and I had people, you know, where we have these types of conversations. I had a couple people to tell, and now here we are talking about it, and I'm feeling so much validation from you, and it's like soothing, and it's confirming, and it's also, it's like encouraging to like, yeah, keep going and keep exploring. But it's really occurring to me that, you know, maybe even 5 years ago, I like did not think I had any hangups about sex. I thought I could talk openly about it, but I'm realizing like I actually couldn't. I didn't have what I have now, and it's occurring to me that I bet you it's the case that there's a lot of women who don't have, I don't know, have outlets, like don't have these conversations. And so this podcast, and who knows what else, this podcast you're creating is striking me as like, oh God, there's like the word nourishment again. Like, this is like, if you don't have the circle, or if you're not lucky enough to have those other people who are like, happen to be like leaning in, or they have the conversation like with you, they have this place that they're going to be able to go.
Well, thank you for recognizing that. That is kind of the point, because this is something that I've realized over time too. Like, you know, I had my little group of girlfriends, and we did have some conversations about it. Like, not, it was more like that, like don't feel like it, but whatever types of conversations. But then in that Wanting It More program that I was talking about, it opened up a lot for me in terms of having those conversations. And I did work for her for a period of months after I was in the program myself, and holding that space for other people to have those conversations. Oh, it was just magical. And so many people, everyone came in and was like, I thought I was alone. I thought that I was, all my friends and my girlfriends seem to love sex, and I feel like I'm the only one that might be struggling, or, it is good, but there's still something missing, or there's, there's so many different things, but like, it makes me so mad that people don't talk about it, because like it's a big part of our life, and we're all having sex. I mean, not everybody, but like most people in relationships. And like, I feel like it's again like a system of oppression almost, that we're not talking about it, because it like keeps us quiet, keeps us in our place. And like, I think shedding light on darkness is like one of the things we're trying to, one of our values, I guess you could say. And like, that's the thing. Women's sexual stories are wide and deep. Like there's no, on top of maybe your current relationship, you have all the former relationships, you have, childhood, traumas, you have, oh my God, I have massive history with like, inappropriate workplace behavior with men, just all these little scenarios, all the times we felt unsafe. We as women feel unsafe around men. I mean, it just almost becomes a norm as we grow up, especially as I was a younger girl. Like, men would say things to me or do things to me, and you smile because you're a little you're uncomfortable, but you don't want to address it. All of it is not addressed. It's swept under the rug. But change doesn't happen that way. Like we need to take it out and start talking about all these things. I'm kind of pissed. I'm pissed that society is set up this way. Like, it's not okay. It's not fair. Let's talk about it so that we can create change here.
Oh, there's so many things that you just said that I was like, if we would have been talking a year ago, I would not have related to, I wouldn't have thought I related to having fear around men. I would have been like, no, I don't. And I was recently reading this book called Run Towards the Danger. I don't know if you've ever heard of it. It's by a Canadian author named Sarah Polley. And she talks about all sorts of things. And she describes some of the sexual trauma that she experienced. And then she also describes the way she interacted with her abusers later. And she describes how like she smiles and she's like, ha ha ha, self-deprecating. And there was something in that I recognized in myself, not with like, not in like an acute situation of like sexual abuse, but in terms of like, I actually do have that relationship with men who seem, I don't know, there's like this subconscious thing that like, you're stronger, you're more powerful. And I have to be a little more like, you know what I mean?
Yes,
I realized, like, true. And it's, I never knew that about myself. And I think it's like, maybe I feel safer now to like uncover those truths, but I realize like what you're saying, that is true for me too. And maybe, and what has helped me, I think, be able to see that is being in this environment of the Mind Rebel Academy. That doesn't exist for me. I feel like powerful and expressive and authentic because of all these connections with other women. And it's only then I can see how inauthentically I've been showing up in these like old little areas of my life. So again, it's like another reason why like having these authentic conversations with women, I feel like you really are shining such a light on, by shining a light on and holding space for something like so good and connection and authenticity and power in the most beautiful sense. You're shining a light and showing this contrast. And I think like bringing healing and awareness to people.
Thank you. That's the goal. I am figuring it out step by step, moment by moment. I have no idea what I'm doing more than anyone else, but like, it's just, yeah, it's, we need to speak up. We need to say, I'm taking the steps one by one to shine that light. So, and the word you said, healing, like that shows up in my journal all the time when I'm writing about what I want to do, because it's a big journey of healing, for sex, like in your sexuality and in other ways, in all the ways of doing the work. That's kind of what we're doing. We're doing the work to heal ourselves, and it's so important. So important.
Yeah. So I know you are feeling it out as you go, but I'm curious about, like, do you have some inklings about some of the conversations like you want to get into and have?
Yes. Well, so if you think of let's change the conversation, like, there's so many things I want to change the conversation about. And when I say that, that's like, not just change it deeply at a societal level. Like, what's the norm? What's the norm of what's talked about in our society? Like, that's why change it deep down in our culture. And there's so many things. Another project that I'm collaborating with another person on is going to be about body image and just the cultural messages that we've been told about how much of our value is caught up in whether or not we have cellulite, whether or not we're this size, what our skin color is, too light, too dark, too whatever, to all the things. So like, that, I mean, gosh, just go on any media outlet for 2 seconds and you can like see that and how damaging it is. Yes, there's more about it. In the end, I think the common thread is they are ways that women are kind of told, stay small. This is your role. It's your role to have sex in this way. It's your role to look this way, to act this way, to be sweet, demure, giving, whatever it is. That's the essence of all the things of collectively.
Can I throw out a suggestion to plant in the back of your mind?
Yes, please.
You should have a conversation about body hair. Don't even get me started about like my lifetime journey of like hair removal and like how that, even how that affects, like, oh God, there's like such a link between like body hair and like being smooth and like feeling comfortable being seen naked and sex and all, like, oh my God. I feel like we need to have a change the conversation about that one.
Yes, it is so true. All of it. Yeah, like we've been told to enjoy sex. A lot of it, the work that we do in my MRA, big piece is compassion, and self-compassion is also a huge part of enjoying sex, because we have to love and nourish ourselves and believe we are worthy of the pleasure of sex, despite the fact whatever we look like in this certain position, in this way, and whatever, like, and if we're hairy, if we're bald, if we're whatever, like, those should have no bearing on our ability to receive pleasure. We all deserve pleasure, despite any of the things happening in this physical body of ours.
Oh my gosh. Oh, Caitlin, I could talk to you forever and ever and ever
I know.
about this. Will you come back and do another one of these one day soon?
Oh my gosh, anytime. It's such an honor to be here. I can't believe I'm even here. So of course, anytime.
Are there, before we go, is there like anything else occurring to you that, I don't know, you want to say about this topic or about what you're doing, or?
Well, I guess I will say I'll give myself a little promo. If you want to sign up for my newsletter, you can find me on Instagram for both. It's Let's Change the Convo, or we do have an Instagram as well for the Not Tonight Project. So you can find us each on there. And then as far as just like, if there's anything that I want to say, I guess I will reiterate this point, because this point always seems very essential to me, is that sex is connection. That is the purpose and the point of it. It's to bring us together to experience pleasure, to experience connection. And that connection is essential to us as humans. It is just like, we don't like realize it's just like air and water and food, all the things. Like, we die inside without human connection. Like, literally physical ailments happen to us. It's been proven. Like, better connections leads to better health. So if you look at it, because it might seem intimidating to people, you know, there might be people more like you that maybe have a few shadow areas, but, you know, generally good sex life. And there may be people that literally would almost identify as hating sex. And I believe there's hope for, you know, everybody, because I've seen the transformation, you know, in the whole spectrum. But that's come back to self-compassion. Why is this important? I guess it's important because it is the most almost authentic form of connection that we can almost experience as humans. Is in our sexuality. There's deep wells of connection there that's available to us. So that's why it's important to take the time, even if it might be hard to look at. Oh, sex. A lot of people are like, oh, it's like, I don't want to look over there because that seems hard and icky or shame. Not maybe icky, maybe not, but still just like, it's kind of like, it's fine. It's good enough. But is it?
Yeah.
Could it be better? Could it be more nourishing, more connective? Is there wells yet unexplored for you? Dive in, you know, don't be afraid. It's not as scary as it seems when you come at it from a place of just like, love for yourself and your partner and self-compassion for everybody involved.
Your passion is like so infectious and so inspiring. I like, oh my God. You know, when you just know, you know, like, it's just so completely, entirely obvious that you are tapping into and expressing like the like deepest purpose and truths of like who you are and what you're meant to do and what you're meant to talk about. Because you just like, you light up. It is like, oh my God, it's such a joy to get to, it's such a joy to get to have this conversation with you.
Oh my God. Thank you so much. It lights me up as well to have it with you. It's that this is it. These conversations are just everything.
They are. And okay, I'm just going to add also, I know that people get a lot of newsletters, but I have to tell you guys that when I read your newsletter, I just like instantly, the first one. Oh, and also I should say, it's technically not a newsletter.
It's changing. It's a story now.
Yeah. It's your story as it unfolds, right?
Yes, it's a story told as it unfolds. So it's essentially a weekly, I mean, it is a newsletter in the fact that I'm going to be updating on my business and the things that we're doing, but it's kind of more like a real life account of my story of doing the work inside of myself to build the business. Because it's a completely startup company right now. Like it's actually, when I think of how far we've come in like the last year, I am pretty like proud of myself because piece by piece, it never feels like much. Like, am I making progress on any given day? But I guess we are. We're kind of like real, but it is still very much startup. But so yeah, in the vein of authenticity, how I started this story is I was in my mentor session with Taryn, and I was just like, I don't know, I feel all this stuff like stuck inside of me and I don't know how to get it out. And she's like, well, what do you like to do? What feels good? And I'm like, just write. I just write all day because that's what I do. I journal and then I have these ideas and I write them down, and I'm doing laundry and I can't get any done because I'm like writing. It's just like inside of me. She's like, do something with that writing. And I was like, well, what? I don't have anything to do with it. And then she told me that her Monday Morning Pep Talk started. So I was like, well, I don't have an audience. She's like, blog, newsletter, something. I was like, I have no audience. So she said she had 5 when she started. And I was like, well, I could come up with 5. Like I have my parents and my friends and my husband or whatever. So that was it. I was like, all right, I guess I'll try that. That seemed like a good next step that day. I didn't know even what I was writing. I just started writing, put it out, and I'm only 6 weeks in, and already like it's becoming clear to me in the process. But like I said, it started as a newsletter, and 6 weeks in, my sister, who's helping me with the branding, she's like rebranding me. She's like, no, it's this instead. I was like, oh, I guess it is this. So like, but I didn't know that 6 weeks ago. So it's just a real live honest account, because at this point in my authenticity journey, I don't know how to do anything but be authentic, because it just feels icky in myself. Sometimes I write the newsletter and it was feeling hard, and I'm like, this, I don't know, but I'm like, have this thought that I'm like, I want to express this, and then I've had to throw it out and be like, that's not what I want to write. And then when I start writing about what I want to write about, it's just like, okay, here we go, flowy flow. And so yeah, that's what it is. I would be honored to have anybody follow along and on our journey, and hopefully the hope is that it could also inspire people almost in a way to like show like, I don't know what I'm doing, but I'm still doing it one step at a time, to give people the confidence that they can do it too.
It's literally my favorite thing that comes into my inbox.
Oh my God.
My favorite thing that comes into my inbox. I see one, I'm like, ooh. I love them.
Oh my God. That is the highest compliment I've gotten. Thank you so much. And I actually have I've like rediscovered this passion for writing that I didn't even know I had. I was like, I mean, I knew I like to journal, but not like write for other people to see. But then I thought back, I was like, I did used to. When I was a child, I did. And at these certain points I did, but then life in college made me write all papers that were like hard and educational and stuff. And I started hating it. So it's like, it's rediscovering a passion that even 6 weeks ago, I didn't even realize was a passion. So it's been just really a beautiful process. So I'm so honored, and it means so much to me that it's resonating with you.
Oh, I love it. I just want to let people know, in case, what's the easiest way? What's the easiest way if they want the newsletter? Where do they go?
So I have a link. Can I post it somewhere? Like,
after this, will you post it like in the comments here for them?
Yeah, I'll post it in the comments right now, right after I get off of here, so that people can, it's just your name and email, and then you'll be signed up. It's what is it? What's the tag? Now I'm trying to remember the tagline. A story told as it unfolds, a new chapter straight to your inbox every week. That's it. Yeah. That's what we're going with today.
Oh, Caitlin, like, thank you again. Oh my God, you're the best. Oh, you're the best. You're the best for coming and being patient through my technical difficulties earlier.
No problem at all.
Oh my goodness. And if you ever want me to come chat with you on any of your things, you just let me know.
Actually, I did want to say, now that you reminded me, yes, I would adore that. And if anyone else is like, I don't know how, I'm so not tech savvy, but like slide into my DMs. I think that's a thing. Let me know. Like, we can interview people anonymously or not anonymously if, whatever people's comfort levels are. But like, I'd love to, that's the stuff. Like, we've got a few people lined up, but we're going to be looking for women that are willing to have these conversations with us. So yay, that's so exciting.
Amazing. And that's such a cool, I think that's so amazing that you're having both, like, people who are like, yes, this is who I am, and also anonymous conversation. Like, what a cool offering to someone who like needs that extra layer of safety also, but really has the desire to express something that's very true. I love that. I love that. Okay. Okay. All right. I could chat with you forever.
I know.
But like, thank you so much for giving your time today. I didn't notice as we were talking because I was just in our conversation, but I see like lots of comments over here about.
Oh, I didn't know there was comments.
Yeah. So.
There they are. I was not on that button. I'll look afterwards.
So we'll circle back, and anyone who's watching this later, feel
my
free to
God,
comment.
These comments are like, oh my gosh. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Love notes to you, and you can come back and you're doing awesome. Oh, you can come back and check your little love notes to you later.
I will do that. Thank you so much.
Okay, Caitlin, thank you again so much. I can't wait to connect soon in all the ways that we get to connect.
Yes, me too. We'll talk soon.
Okay. Bye to you and to everyone.